Hello Infiniteers, and welcome back to Monstropolis. Today we're going to begin working on the logic for this toy box, but before we do, I know many of you are new to my channel, and I know some of you are also relatively new to the Disney Infinity toy box. For this video, and in fact most of the logic videos in the various toy box series that I have done, I am assuming that you know at least the basics of how to use the logic toys. I have to assume that, otherwise I would keep teaching the basics over and over again in each new video, and I don't want to do that. That would get repetitive very quickly, and it would make every logic video even longer than it already is. Instead, I want to focus on the specific mission or game that the video is about, and show you how to connect the logic toys to build that particular game. Now, if you are new to the toy box mode, and you're not very comfortable with the logic toys, or you feel intimidated by them, I highly recommend checking out my Toy Box Tutorials series. I know it's a long series. In fact, I will be posting episode 105 on Friday, but you don't need to watch the entire series just to learn the basics. If you work your way through the first 20 episodes or so, you'll get a very good introduction to the toy box and some of the basic logic toys. And don't just watch the videos, follow along with me and do what I do, because the best way to learn is to do it and to experiment. And so starting in episode 5 of Toy Box Tutorials, I begin building a Fantasia toy box, and if you follow along and build the same toy box on your own system, you'll not only learn a lot, but you'll also end up with a fun, fully functional toy box that's filled with working examples of how to use some of the toys in the game. Alright, enough about that. Let's get back to Monstropolis. There really isn't as much logic in this toy box as you might think, because we only have one mission, and that is the CDA mission to find and rescue the children. So today, I want to show you how to create that mission, and next time I'll show you the rest of the logic. Now this is a very basic fetch type of quest, and it is something that I've built in other toy boxes, but this one has a couple of differences. The first problem that makes this a little different is the limited memory, and if you look at my memory meter over on the right, you can see it's starting to get kind of full. And so I can't just dump townspeople and enemies and things into the toy box, because that'll quickly eat up that remaining memory. And so I need to add and remove the CDA agents for this mission dynamically. All right? And that's the thing that impacts this particular mission. Now the second problem is that the townsperson that I'm going to use for the CDA agent is only available through the friend generator. That's these toys. It's not available through the friendly wave generator. And so that means in order to do the taking out and adding in of the CDA agents dynamically, I have to use these instead of the friendly wave generator. And that complicates things just a little bit. And so that's going to govern what we're going to do here. So there's two phases to this. These toys here are for taking in and out the CDA agents. These toys over here are for the mission. Okay? And we're going to start with these toys over here. So let me give you just a quick rundown of what I've got. You'll notice I've dropped a bunch of toys in ahead of time on the video. So don't panic that I've already done this. All I've done is place these toys. Alright, I haven't configured them. I haven't connected them to anything with the exception of the friendly wave generator, and I'll cover that in a moment. So, to take the CDA agents in and out of the toy box dynamically, we have a counter, a logic gate, a dynamic trigger, 3 friend generators, and 3 locators that will go along with each of them. And I'll show you how those are positioned here. You can get a kind of a good look at that. And if you don't get these positioned exactly the way I do, it's okay. I've got a couple of cars from the decorations drawer, the police cars, and we have the collection pen, and that's out of the Creativitoys drawer. I've got another locator placed here, and this is positioned using these basic blocks out of the basic blocks drawer. So I stuck a long block with a square block on the end, the locator on the end of that. And it's right off that doorway. And that's kind of important because this is going to set up the CDA generation zone around this locator. So that's what that locator's for. All right, we'll get to the other toys when we get to that part of it. So let's just focus on this part first. So for each of the friend generators, we're going to connect this with a new locator connection to the locators. Each one has its own corresponding locator. We're going to generate one CDA agent with each friend generator. We'll connect that one to this one. Okay. The dynamic trigger will do a new locator connection. We're going to connect that to this locator. So again, the dynamic trigger is going to set up a zone around this locator. So when players enter and leave this zone, we'll be adding and taking out the CDA agents. And on this dynamic trigger, if we look at the properties, the target is going to be the connected locator. And the trigger distance, we're going to set this to 70. And I'm typing that in on my Wii U controller. There we go. And by the way, the default properties on the friend generators are all fine. So it's going to be none. Whoops, behavior should be standstill. I lied, there is a change we need to make here because we don't want these guys wandering around. And generated friend options we're not using. That's just if you connect this townsperson to a path, and we're not going to be doing that. So on each of the friend generator properties, you're going to set the behavior to stand still. In addition to connecting it up to its own locator. All right. Now the logic gate has no properties, so there's nothing we need to do with that. The counter, we're going to use this to keep track of the number of players that enter and leave this zone that we're setting up. And for this, all the defaults are fine, but we're going to turn the visible display off. Player doesn't need to see what the counter is set to. All right, so what we're going to do is the dynamic trigger is going to kick this off. So when players enter or leave the radius around that locator, and again the radius is 70, we're going to add and remove the CDA agents. And we only want to do this the first time a player enters this zone. So if you're on a console, that's why we have the counter, because you have multiple players potentially. And we only want to generate the CDA agents when the first player gets close enough. If the second player comes along, we don't need to do anything. And so we're going to run the signal through a logic gate. So on the dynamic trigger, new logic connection when entered by player any, we're going to input into the logic gate. And on output from the logic gate, new logic connection on output, we're going to come over to each of the friend generators. You're going to go down to the Force Awakens category. And the townsperson that we're using is Zuzabal? I don't know how you pronounce that. And we'll make the same logic connection for each of the others. So on output, come over to this friend generator, do the same thing, go down to the Force Awakens category, and select that Z character. New logic connection on output. Same thing. So when the player enters the zone around that locator over there, we're going to generate all three of those townspeople. So that's pretty straightforward. Now again, we only want to do this once, so we want to close this logic gate as soon as it happens. So on this first one over here, this first friend generator will do a new logic connection. When generated, we'll turn around and close the logic gate. Okay? So if a second player comes along and enters this zone, it'll try to input into the gate. The gate will be closed, and it won't do anything. And that's good, because if we didn't have this logic gate and we didn't close it, you'd end up with 2 characters at each locator, and that's not good. All right, and the other thing this needs to do is a new logic connection when entered by player any. On the dynamic trigger, we're going to come over to our counter, and we're going to increment the counter by 1. All right, so when a player enters the zone, we increment the counter. And likewise, when a player leaves the zone, we need to decrement the counter. So on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when exited by player any, come over to our counter, and we'll decrement the counter by 1. All right, so that keeps track of the number of players that are in the zone. Now, when the last player enters the zone, the counter is going to reach 0. And when that happens, we want to take those townspeople out to save memory. So on the counter, a new logic connection, when 0 is reached, we want to come over to each of the friend generators, go all the way to the bottom, and remove all. We're going to make the same connection for the other 2 as well. So when 0 is reached on the counter, we want each of the friend generators to remove the townsperson they've generated. And again, this will save memory. And that's really important because on my Wii U at least, I have limited memory. And I'm going to be having a lot of townspeople for the CDA agents and the children, some enemies, so that's going to fill up the toy box pretty quickly if I don't be smart about how I'm using the memory. All right, and the other thing we should do on the counter is a new logic connection. When 0 is reached, we want to reopen the logic gate so that when somebody else comes back to this zone, we put those agents back. Okay. And there we go. That is everything with the generation of our CDA agents. Okay? Hopefully that's easy to follow. All right, now we're going to turn this one, the one that's sitting at this locator, into our mission giver. And so for that, we have several controls. We have a radar marker and a dynamic trigger and a text displayer. These are the 3 standard controls for a mission giver. And for the mission itself, we have a friendly wave generator. This will be for the children that we're going to rescue. We have a radar marker to find them. We have a collection pen that we're going to put them in when we find them, because we're going to find them and bring them back here. And then when the mission's over, we have an action enforcer and a sound effect generator that we'll use to let the player know the mission's done. All right. And again, I've only just dropped these toys. I haven't touched them except for the friendly wave generator. To save a little bit of time, I configured the wave ahead of time so you didn't have to scroll through this long list. And the 3 children I'm using are Candace, Dipper, and Lewis. Okay? You can use any of the townspeople you want. Those are the 3 that I chose. And then I used the new locator connection to connect up the friendly wave generator to a bunch of locators around the toy box. And I'll just show you what I've done. You can place the locators anywhere you like. I recommend about a dozen of them. So I have one here in the archway at the Capitol. I have one up on top here so the player can climb up this thing. That would give them a reason to do that. I've got one on top of this building over here. I've got another one on top of this building over here. I put one on top of this building over there. Of course, there's a drain pipe to get up there. We have one by the clock tower. have one over here by the movie theater. And another one over here. So they're pretty spread out. And you don't need a lot of these, but you want a good variety. Once we drop the townsperson, they'll start wandering around. And so they'll never be in the same spot twice. But if you want, you could put another one over on this end of the street. You could put one over here in this corner. You could put one over by this little area over here. Oh, I do have one that I put inside this parking structure. And I connected the locator, the friendly wave generator up to that. So just add some variety. And so that's all I've done with the mission toys. Now we set up the CDA agents so that they don't move, and they're going to be coming and going. And so I can't really connect the mission giver directly to this friend generator because, again, the townsperson comes and goes, and when they go, when the player's not over here, which they won't be by default, the townsperson will not be in the toy box. But I want to see the radar marker over here anyway, even if the townsperson isn't here. And so we're going to connect up our mission giver toys, namely the dynamic trigger and this first radar marker, to that locator rather than the friend generator. And that way the radar marker and the little zone around our mission giver will always be there, even if the townsperson is not. And so we'll connect that up to this locator, and we'll connect up the radar marker to that locator as well. On the radar marker, we'll set the properties on this. So the beacon type will be a yellow exclamation point. That's the standard symbol for a mission giver. And we'll leave that set to all. The beacon location needs to be the locator. And I want this on by default when you come into the toy box. On the dynamic trigger, for its properties, we'll set the target to be the locator. Trigger distance is going to be 6. On the properties for the text displayer, we're going to set the text duration to 4 and the text style to banner, so the player will not be able to miss the text. Okay. Yeah, let's do these 3 toys first. So on the dynamic trigger, this is what's going to kick off the mission. So when the player enters this little 6 radius zone around that locator, we want to start our mission. So we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player, any. First thing we will do is turn off the radar marker. So we'll deactivate that. And we're only going to want to do this once. So we're going to have to disable this toy, and we'll have the radar marker do that. So on the radar marker, a new logic connection. When that is deactivated, we'll turn this dynamic trigger off. Okay? All right, on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player, any. Not only do we want to turn off the radar marker, we want to display some text so the player knows what to do. And so we're going to come over to the text displayer. We're going to go down to the missions category at the end. And our mission giver is going to say, I need your help. Okay. And there we go. So that is our mission giver. Now for the mission itself, we have several toys here. We have these 2 toys and our collection pen. So the player is going to go fetch the townspeople and come back and drop them in the pen. So on the pen, under the properties, we're going to remove the counted actor. So when they put the townsperson in here, we'll delete them. That'll free up the memory. And our friendly wave generator is what is going to put the townspeople into the world. So on the properties for that, we want to generate the townspeople at random locators around the toy box. We'll take the generation delay to 0. The rest of those properties are fine, and under the generated friend options, we'll leave that set to none as well. Okay. And then we want to be able to find them, so we're going to use a radar marker for that. So this radar marker will do a new actor connection. We're going to connect that up to the friendly wave generator, which will put a radar marker on every townsperson that generates. And under the properties for this, the beacon type will be a yellow arrow. Beacon location will be the connected actor. And the rest of those are fine. We want this off by default. We're not going to turn it on until the time is ready and the mission starts. Alright, so on our dynamic trigger for the mission giver, new logic connection when entered by player Annie. We'll come over to our friendly wave generator and generate the wave. And on the dynamic trigger for the mission giver, a new logic connection when entered by player Annie. We'll turn on the radar marker for those children. And yeah, that's actually it. That's all we need to do there. Alright, so that'll put the townspeople out in the world with a radar marker so the player can find them. They'll go find them, pick them up, bring them back, dump them in this bin. When the last one is deleted, we'll end the mission, and the friendly wave generator is the one that's going to know about that. So on the friendly wave generator, we'll do a new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we're going to turn off the radar marker because we don't need that anymore. And on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection when the wave is defeated. Come over to the action enforcer, and we'll have all the players celebrate. And on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection when the wave is defeated. Come over to our sound effect generator, and under the musical category, we'll have it play the fanfare, little flourish. That's what I like to do at the end of a mission. And on the properties for the sound generator, make sure you turn off 3D sound at speaker or locator, because you want to be able to hear this no matter where you are in the toy box. Alright, and that is everything. So this is just a dumping ground for deleting the townspeople. We're not actually going to connect up any logic to that. I'm using the logic off the friendly wave generator to detect when the last one is deleted. And so there we go. That is it for the logic. By the way, the radius around this for the generation of the townspeople for the CDA agents extends out just about to this point. Okay, so if you decide to go racing, which we'll do in a couple episodes here, you're actually going to be passing by there without activating that zone. And so that's kind of important as to where I placed this locator, why it's there, and why this is set to 70, is to make sure that the radius around that does not interfere with the race. So that's the logic for the CDA mission to rescue the kids. Next time I'll show you how to hook up the remaining logic for the friend and enemy generation zones and the button that generates the vehicle for the race. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, and I want to remind you that I have logic diagrams on my blog that may help you connect the Creativitoys that I used today. The link is in the video description. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already, so you don't miss the next episode. Take care.